Hey guys, so if you're watching this, it should be Friday. And we also had the announcement yesterday that everybody's going cyber. So I'll do my best to put in even more time to everything online, to the videos, try to make it more interactive and interesting for you, and try to give you feedback, more feedback, and better feedback on Google Classroom, because it looks like this is what we're doing for however long. But for today, anyway. We're going to continue on looking at the early form of government. As a quick review from yesterday, we were basically asking you why we needed government and what were the problems back then during the revolutionary time that we would need something to step in. In addition to that, we always want to dive in history, come back out, and look at, what are things going on today that maybe could be improved. If we have 98% of things like going pretty well for us, if we dig deep, what are some things that maybe we can find and cherry pick in our society today or democracy today, whatever, that maybe we could add and make better. So this is what you guys did in Google Classroom. You did a pretty good job. All right. All right. Let me skip around a little bit. All right. The articles. Remember, this is just basically written down how we set up the plan of government for an alliance, right? That's what a confederation is, between the 13 colonies. And these 13 colonies didn't have anybody that would oversee all of them. There wasn't like a head of this. There wasn't a president or a king, anything like that. Because each one wanted their sovereignty, their own independence, their own self-rule. So you have these 13 basically nations, and that's how they consider themselves, a different nation working together. It's nice, they have their own, equal, I guess, say in things, right? But it's not really that great, especially when you're, working out things like maybe Pennsylvania's boundaries. Well, if Connecticut's representative just as much say as Pennsylvania's or Maryland's or Virginia's and so on, nothing's actually getting done because all four of them are equal. It sounds nice and it is nice and it is good, but it's not really working. There's not anybody ahead of them like a court or a house of lawmakers or an executive. There's none of that, so nothing's getting done. We took a look at the weaknesses, and while they made this as during the Revolutionary War, and it was implemented as soon as it was over, very quickly we already get some of these same people meeting right away to make something different. All right. So this new plan would be in Philadelphia, just like everything else. These delegates, a delegate meaning just a representative, would meet for about 4 months in an attempt to improve or rewrite the plan of government. Okay, this had so many debates and so many discussions. Sometimes they're giving speeches for 2 hours, 3 hours, or 4 hours a day, meeting for at least 6 hours a day. It's hot. It's actually smelly in Philadelphia by all accounts. They took a single break for 11 days, and that was it. They did want to keep it secret, so it was untainted. And this was also a source of many different, not just like debates, but many compromises as well. There was discussion on many things. One of the big sources was representation. If Pennsylvania's population is bigger than, let's say, Rhode Island. Sorry, guys. Should Rhode Island get the same amount of say? How do they do it? Do they set up two houses, or should they just have one house? Is there an executive? What about the court system? Should it be based on population, or equal say? And then what about the 20% of the population that are the enslaved people? 90% of them residing in the South, of course. Well, although they had many conflicts, they did have many compromises. One of the great compromisers, they actually called him the Great Pacifier, was Ben Franklin. It's supposed to be him, but it's not. But anyway, one of the biggest compromises of it is the Great Compromise, and this creates two houses, or what we can call a bicameral legislature. We kind of get that from English Parliament. They have the House of Commons and the House of Lords. The Iroquois Confederacy did something similar with their tribes when they meet. In fact, our Congress in 1988 makes a statement on that, so you can read that on your own then. But this great compromise kind of makes winners out of both these plans. So, like, everybody wins. So instead of just having one house, based on population, Rhode Island would be screwed. But instead of like a New Jersey plan, like, is that fair that Virginia should have as much say as let's say New Jersey or Rhode Island, something like that. Well, people complain like we have way more people. This is not fair. So they just did both. So now the Virginia plan, when we think of Virginia, think of a bigger state, bigger population. This is where we divide up representatives. So Virginia gets more say than the smaller one. But at the same time, we also have the New Jersey plan, which says, New Jersey, you get 2 senators, Pennsylvania, you get 2 senators, Virginia, you get 2 senators, Rhode Island, you get 2 senators, and so on. So they get both, and then they balance each other. So one of the great compromises that they make, actually, literally and figuratively. Another one would be the 3/5 compromise, and there's more compromises than this, but these are the big ones that we should mention at least. This is saying that, like, for representation, well, black people would be worth 3/5. So not really great. Like when we look at the Constitution, it's one of our coolest documents, except the slave stuff. So by 1787, remember this is short-lived Articles of Confederation, the Constitution was approved, and all this is the definition of the Constitution. Think the written plan of government. All right, I think that's a nice working definition for us. All right, so it's approved. What the framers did, meaning in Philadelphia, was try to make the federal government stronger, but also limited. So this is where you get a bunch of checks and balances and separations of powers. This includes the 3 branches which is set up in the Constitution: the legislative branch, the executive branch, and the judicial branch. I teach civics, and you guys should have already had a lot of this, so I'm not going to spend a ton of details on it, but I do want to make sure that you still understand what it means. For instance, 83%. This came from the Atlantic article. I think it was in 2017 if you want to search it. But basically, 83% of students fail basic civics tests. And think this might be the only time you get this stuff. As I always say, maybe you go to college for political science, you get something like this again, but probably not. So, in fact, the stat is very similar when we look at even adults. We don't know basic civics, so bear with me when I spend a little bit on this stuff. But let's talk about the legislative branch quickly, right? All right, so the 3 branches set up by the Constitution: legislative, think legislate, think law, laws. They're created by Congress. Congress meaning the House of Representatives and the Senate. Okay, good. Executive, think like an executive, almost like a CEO, a head, a boss, a principal, whatever. This is where the president comes in. But it is much more than just the president. This is even the FDA, it's NASA, right? It's the post office, it's a bunch of different things. But we can think of that for now. All right, and then last, judicial branch. Judicial, oh, that looks like judge. Okay, that's how I will remember it. So, like Supreme Court judges, all right? Good. So the cool thing about this is when they're writing it, you have to think they're they're in this little like hot room. Everything's locked. Doors are shut, windows are shut. They're meeting in secret. They've been fighting. They've been talking for hours and hours and hours. Their population is like less than 4 million, and today we have 333 million. They're writing with ink dipped pens on pressed animal skin, while we have TikTok. Their budget back then was $4 million, and today it's over $1 trillion. And we have nukes, we have drones, we've got you name it. So it's so cool that this document could last over 230 years, and the way they did that was to allow changes, to allow amendments. The way to remember what an amendment is, think mend, M-E-N-D. It is like a fix, right? When things mend together, let's say a broken bone, and you put it in a cast, whatever, it mends back together. It's a fix. Another way to remember it that maybe you can't get from just looking at the word, but it's an addition to it. So the Constitution, let's say it's a couple pieces of paper. Okay, well, you add the Bill of Rights. Okay, it's a couple more sheets of paper, and you keep on going. Till you get to 27. We have 27 amendments, but we could have 28, we could have 29. It's whatever you guys want it to be. But it's a change to the document. So later when we get to drones, or if we get to atomic weapons, if we get to social media algorithms, whatever it is. If you get to TikTok, at some point we might have to address it. So having this in place allows us to address these things in the future, right? Here's an outline to it. To start, just like a good essay or a good PowerPoint, whatever, you have some sort of introduction to it, right? You have a preamble, and this states the goals of the Constitution. We're actually going to look at it too. I think after you read it, it just makes a lot of sense what it's trying to do. Again, just like a good introduction or an introduction paragraph, you know, a topic sentence, whatever. Like, it just really just says exactly what it is. So it's nice, and we're going to look at it in a second. After that, you have Articles 1 through 7. So, you know, a couple paragraphs and lines. This one will set up the legislative branch. So again, law. Next one, executive branch, executive. So like the president. Next one is judicial branch, and that would be judge. Next one are the states, because remember, we have states' rights because they want their own sovereignty. If we go back and remember this, right? The articles, you know, Pennsylvania didn't want to be told what to do by, you know, potentially a tyrant or a king or a George Washington, whatever. So this goes over the states. Also adding amendments so that it can last over 230 years. And then it has to do with debts and supremacy oaths and just the ratification. So after that, it's 27 amendments. Could be 29 in 20 years. Could be 37, 40 years, whatever it is, right? It's whatever we want it to be. So here's a preamble. So once again, the preamble is the introduction to the Constitution that explains its goals. So please make sure we know the difference between the Declaration of Independence, the Constitution, the Articles, preamble, an amendment, and the Bill of Rights. These are all things that kids mix up all the time. I feel like they're pretty easy. Let me know if you need help distinguishing them. Anyway, let's start with it saying we the people of the U.S. I mean, I think they mean, you know, 39 people, you know, 39 of the 55 signers. But that's all right. We're one big happy family, right? Well, sometimes. Anyway, we the people of the U.S., saying all of us, in order to form a more perfect union, so we had the articles, but let's make it better, right? Establish justice, okay, make sure things are fair, ensure domestic tranquility, make sure we're all happy at home in our own country, provide for the common defense, okay, is that like military here, is it, you know, is it the Navy, is it in the seas, is it domestic, okay, let's just keep going, promote the general welfare, the well-being, is that health, is that education, you know, so on, is that safety, and secure the blessings of liberty, meaning freedom, to ourselves, ooh, that's nice, and our posterity. Here's a word for you, posterity. It means future generations. So you, listening to this, are the posterity of, I don't know, Ben Franklin, I guess. That's kind of cool. Do ordain and establish this Constitution of the U.S. So one more time, we all, you know, want to make sure that we have a good union together, a good alliance, and, you know, things are fair, and we're happy here, and we're protected, and you know, our well-beings are okay, and we're free, and our future generations are free. Let's make this Constitution. Let's do it. All right, there's my version of it. Let's keep going. So here's a quick illustration if you're struggling to know what the Constitution set up, you know, at least in the articles. So the legislative branch, meaning Congress, when Congress means Senate and House of Representatives. Senate would be created by the New Jersey Plan in the Great Compromise, remember. You know, each state gets 2. That means we have a total of 50. The House of Representatives was created by the Virginia Plan, right? If we just go back to this, we have to remember that. So, you know, different states have more power, like, you know, California or Texas or Florida, New York, Pennsylvania, right? These are the swing states, so they're the only ones presidents pay attention to, unfortunately. Then we get the executive, so it's president, vice president, and, you know, all the departments, agencies, you know, everything else. But again, save that for civics class. And then the judicial branch, so Supreme Court justices, right? Something else that they set up in these meetings are checks and balances. So again, I'll try to go quick, but the whole thing to keep in mind is like, wow, look at what these 55 people planned in this time, you know, that we still do today, we still use today, and it's kind of effectively worked. So you get the president who can appoint judges, but then the judges that can go back and say, you know, what you're doing is unconstitutional. They don't have an army. but they have an extreme amount of, you'll like this, clout. Okay, they are like revered. They have such a distinguished position that people take them serious, and if they say something about him, well, they listen and they do something about it, such as impeachment. But the same thing, if they make something unconstitutional that they have the backing by the president. Then he is the army, but they have all the money. They're the ones that control money. Anyway, although he appoints the judges, they actually have to approve it. So this is another check and balance on everything. They're the ones that make the laws, but he has to sign the laws at the end of the day. And he can actually reject the laws, but this can still go back if they can overturn it with a higher majority. Right? So it's a way that they all are separated. The power is separated, right, in several different ways. And it's a way that they can balance each other. Now, the only stipulation, and this is something they also talked about in these meetings, was political parties. Okay, our founders didn't like it. Washington did not like it. He thought that would cause so much trouble. Him and the other founders also thought this was only going to last like 20 years, and that our country, our experiment was going to fall apart. But one of the dangers of it was political parties, and I think in 2020 you can kind of see some of that. And checks and powers go out the window, right? Because at this point, again, it's pretty evident if this is an Obama or a Bush or a Clinton or a Trump or a Biden. Let's say you get Trump in, and well, he's going to work with the Republicans here. He's going to even maybe try to put it in Republicans here. And then it's like, okay, well, there goes checks and balances, separation of power out the window, because now they're all working together. Same thing with the Democrats. So if anything, instead of seeing the power separated 3 ways, it's more so like 2 ways right now. It's more like Republican and Democrat, which divide the power. So this is really awesome that they set this up, but a lot of this, like I said, does go out the window once you get these 2 major parties. So instead of like these 3 divisions, it's like a quasi 2 division thing. So it is weird. Another weird thing that they actually set up at the very end of their meetings was electoral college. But that's another conversation. They were kind of like, we're pretty much done with this whole constitution thing. We'll just leave it at this, and if they want to fix electoral college later, they can. And I'm not kidding. You can look at James Madison's notes. Anyway, let's keep going. So the first 10 amendments are the Bill of Rights. Also in these meetings, they are not going to ratify and sign onto the Constitution unless they get a Bill of Rights. Okay, this is what they're saying there in the meetings. They're saying it elsewhere. You're hearing murmuring of this. No Constitution unless you get a Bill of Rights. That's for sure. So this needed to be promised. If you're going to have this federal government that's strong, and maybe some guys are worried about some sort of monarchy or a federal power that's tyrannical, well, put these safeguards in place and then we'll be good to go. So they do. So the Bill of Rights is just the first 10 amendments of the Constitution. That's all. This will be ratified in 1789, and this gives us some of the best things of our nation. Freedom of speech, press, religion, petition, assembly. A lot of people, especially in our area, like this, right to bear arms. No more quartering soldiers. So whether it's the British or Washington later, you have your right to your home and not letting soldiers in or providing a bed, meal, whatever else. You have protection from search and seizure. John Hancock probably loved this one, so he'd stop getting caught for smuggling. But you need a warrant and everything else. There's rights of the accused, and all these other ones have to do with like laws, right, and due process, to make sure that a king or Washington or whomever isn't just throwing you in jail, that it's actually as fair as it can be, right? This is about the requirements for a jury trial, a free trial by a jury of your peers. So, if I'm locked up, it's not just like, people that don't like me. It's a mixed bag. There's rules of common law, limits on criminal punishment, like cruel and unusual punishment. And after that, 9 and 10 are more so about what people and states can and can't do. So it's, the rights to them. So whatever the Constitution doesn't cover, then it's left up to the state. So PA decides, let's say, here's one, like marijuana. like they dictate what happens with that. It might be different than Ohio or New York. Maybe they're harsher in Pennsylvania or whatever, but they dictate on that. And then everything else is left up to us. So it's like um, that's where you have your own individual freedom, because this document clearly isn't covering everything in your life. But we could definitely talk about any and all of these, like for an entire, class period. In fact, I actually do just for my civics class take an entire day, sometimes two, to go over just the First Amendment. So super cool, super important, and like the best parts of our nation set up at this time. All right, just a couple factoids. Almost all of them are set up within the first 2 years. In fact, you'll see 80% of them are. The 27th Amendment, which was proposed at this time, has to do with congressional salaries. This was the one that wasn't passed until the 90s. Um, to add an amendment, you need a 2/3 vote to propose it. So that means like bringing it there, but then you need 3/4 to pass it. Something to keep in mind. I'm pretty sure I asked you this question, but it's not civics class, so we'll keep on moving. Here are your review questions. Answer them in comments. And that's all I have for you guys for this video, right? I wanted to keep it short. I wanted to keep it brief. Constitution's important. It's created in Philly, in PA, with plenty of Pennsylvania delegates. But I just wanted to make sure we at least knew the basics, so when they take statistics again, that you're not failing, just basic civics tests. Anyway, number one, what were some of the weaknesses of the Articles of Confederation? Number two, how did the framers allow the Constitution to be changed? And three, why would the citizens want a Bill of Rights? Right? So think about it. Other than that, remember when we come back on Monday, well, what I'm saying, online on Monday, you will have a review guide and a quiz. All right, you guys are welcome to study. I'll see. I think they want me live streaming, so I'll probably be live streaming from now on. I'm going to see what happens with that. Maybe you guys can quiz each other, or you can create your own like Google Meets with a couple of your partners in class and quiz each other, whatever you guys want. Tests will be on Tuesday, and then, enjoy the break. Happy Thanksgiving. All right, guys, let me know if you need anything. Send me emails, comments, whatever. Have a good one.